Welcome to The Jewish World, the show that discusses the week's most pressing issues facing the Jewish state, the Jewish people, and the global Jewish community. Back in March, we reported on a shocking story out of the Jewish community in Belarus, where the remains of hundreds of Jews were unearthed in a World War II mass grave. We've been following the story, and this past week it has come to a conclusion, as the bodies of more than 1,200 Jewish Holocaust victims were reburied. Earlier this year, builders were digging the foundations for a luxury building complex in the city center of Brest, Belarus, when they began to uncover bones. Soldiers were then called in to exhume the remains of what is believed to be the 1,214 Jews killed at the site during the Nazi occupation. Researchers say there were clear bullet holes in the skulls, some of which belonged to teenagers, women, and even babies. All of the bodies were apparently lying face down. And now the remains were buried this past week in 120 blue caskets embossed with the Star of David, to pay respect to the victims.
Похороны по еврейской вере, они очень важный процесс. Душа проходит в небо через этот процесс. И поэтому нам, как еврейскому народу, как еврейской общине, было очень важно, чтобы все было сделано по таким еврейским порядкам.
Each casket was laid side by side in a giant grave in one of the city's cemeteries, which is just north of Brest. And a local rabbi led the ceremony, which was attended by about 300 people and included a gun salute by Belarusian soldiers.
У меня к сегодняшнему событию двойственное чувство. Первое – это, конечно, ощущение страшной трагедии, свидетелем которой мы сегодня были. А второе чувство – это то, что именно эти трагедии, возможно, позволят человечеству думать о том, что этого не должно повториться. То есть, если не помнить, если не сохранить память, все может вернуться назад.
Before World War II, almost half of Brest's 50,000-strong population was Jewish. After the Germans invaded the city in 1941, close to 5,000 men were executed, and the Jews left alive were thrown into a ghetto. In October of 1942, the Nazis decided to wipe them out, and many were herded onto trains and driven to a forest about 62 miles away from the city. It's believed that those found in this mass grave in the city center had managed to hide at first, only to be rooted out and murdered. New York University has once again become the center of controversy after Stephen Thrasher, a graduate of the university's Department of Social and Cultural Analysis, voiced his support for the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement against Israel during his doctoral convocation speech this past week.
And I am so proud of NYU's chapters of Students for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voices for Peace, and of GSOC, and of the NYU student government, and of my colleagues in the Department of Social and Cultural Analysis for supporting the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement against the apartheid state government in Israel. Because this is what we are called to do. This is our NYU legacy, that we are connected in radical love. And we have a duty and a privilege in this position to protect not the most popular amongst us, but the most vulnerable amongst us on every campus where we serve, in every community where we live, in every place that we work. This is our duty.
Thrasher, who is a contributing editor to BuzzFeed and is slated to become a faculty member at Northwestern University's Medill School of Journalism, praised his colleagues who earlier this month decided to boycott NYU's own Tel Aviv branch, pledging non-cooperation with the Tel Aviv program. His controversial remarks were greeted with applause from the audience. But this past week, NYU President Andrew Hamilton was forced to apologize for the incident and said he found it quite objectionable. He added that Thrasher had excluded the remarks about BDS from the version of the speech he had submitted before the ceremony. Hamilton said, "We are sorry that the audience had to experience these inappropriate remarks." And the NYU president also reaffirmed NYU's rejection of academic boycotts of Israel. But despite the apology, there are many critics who are not satisfied with NYU's stance against anti-Israel boycotts as well as anti-Semitism on the college's campus. Following the apology, a video went viral of Hamilton applauding Thrasher as he came down from the podium, leaving many to question the sincerity of his comments. Additionally, NYU has been in the headlines in recent weeks over what some have dubbed its climate of anti-Semitism. But NYU was not the only university embroiled in this latest controversy. Northwestern University also released a statement confirming that Thrasher will in fact be joining its faculty despite the comments he made. The university said that while it does not share all of his views or feel that commencement was an appropriate venue to express them, academic freedom assures his right to hold them. The university said that while Thrasher will not be the first faculty member to support BDS, the university unequivocally rejects BDS and said it values its many relationships with universities and research centers in Israel. Charitable giving is one of the cornerstones of the Jewish faith. And so a new initiative, Daily Giving, was recently launched, and it seeks to revolutionize Jewish philanthropy $1 at a time. And here to tell us more about it is Dr. Jonathan Donath, a chiropractor from White Plains, New York, who came up with the concept. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell us about Daily Giving. What exactly is this new site?
This site is basically an automated platform, so people can go on and sign up for as little as $1 a day, and it's kind of a crowdfunding. So as a group, we are all putting our dollars together to give to 36 different tzedakah organizations all over the world, half in America, half in Israel, and we as an organization take nothing. We're a nonprofit, but we also take nothing ourselves. We're all volunteers. And the idea is that our singular dollars are so much more meaningful and going to have such a bigger impact when we give as a group.
So I'm curious, where did the idea come from? Because there are other ways to donate to Israel.
The idea came from basically one night I was in my local shul, and I was davening, and I put $1 in the tzedakah box, and I just had this epiphany that no matter how much tzedakah I give, I still get a mitzvah for that $1 that I just put in the tzedakah box. So I went home and I started Googling, is there a way that I can get that mitzvah for $1 every single day, no matter what, even if I forget, even if I'm busy, even if I don't go to shul? And I went home and I Googled and I couldn't find anything. So I spoke to a couple of my friends, and we decided to start the organization called Daily Giving, or Tzedakah Yomi, with the idea that we learn every day, we do lots of different things every day. Why aren't we giving tzedakah every day? We're taught as children and as young children to put a penny, put a nickel, put a quarter in the tzedakah box. And I felt like maybe that had been forgotten at some point. And so we made this platform. So it's very, very simple, and you could sign on, and it's very transparent. So every single day you get an email saying where your tzedakah went to, and you see the numbers growing. So we started January 1st of this year, and we are close to up to $400 a day, which is about over $138,000. Even if we stopped right now and you didn't get a single new giver, it would already be $138,000. So you see that the numbers can grow, and it's very exciting because you get to see the numbers growing. I signed up my children, so my children get the email, and it's not easy to teach your kids about tzedakah and giving. And this way, they get to see every single day. They get an email, and they see it growing. They learn about new charities, and they get to see what a great thing it is.
And so how are the charities chosen?
So we have a board, and we have a rabbinical council. The rabbinical council is made up of several rabbis, including Rabbi Herschel Schefter, and Rabbi Pesach Krohn, and Rabbi Shmuel Greenberg, and Rabbi Moshe Tuvia Leaf. And so the rabbis, we went to the rabbis with all the different charities, and they asked us to add a couple of their own that they liked. And then we vetted them. We first vetted them before we were the rabbis. We actually left out some that their expense ratios were too high. We were very careful. We really want the full amount to go to the tzedakah organizations, and we wanted tzedakah organizations that are really careful on how they're spending their money to make sure it's having maximum impact.
And what are some of the charities that you do work with?
We give to United Hatzalah, Magen David Adom, and Sharsheret, and Rofei Cholim Cancer Society, and Camp HASC, and Hebrew Free Burial Association, and Yad Eliezer, and Od Yosef Chai, and Ataim, and Bonei Olam. It's a mix of poverty organizations and special needs organizations and cancer organizations and outreach organizations and infertility organizations. It's a nice mix.
So you really cover a broad range of charities, and you're saying that every day you give to a different charity? Is that how it works?
Correct. Every single day we give to a different charity. And we have 36 right now. We will probably be adding some more as time goes on, but we want the money to have maximum impact. So we don't want to add 365 because we're already giving about $4,000 to each charity.
Well, Dr. Jonathan Donath, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. It's an incredible initiative, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. And if you want to donate to charity through this new initiative, you can do so by visiting www.dailygiving.org. The government commissioner for Jewish life in Germany and the fight against anti-Semitism, Felix Klein, caused a firestorm when he called on Jews not to wear a kippah in public in Germany due to the rise in anti-Semitism in his country. In statements to the Funky newspaper group, Klein said, "I cannot recommend to Jews that they wear the kippah at all times, everywhere in Germany," adding that his opinion had changed on this issue recently due to the surge in anti-Semitism. In the interview, Klein also blamed social media and what he dubbed constant attacks against our culture of remembrance as contributing factors. The anti-Semitism czar also called for training for police, teachers, and lawyers regarding what is allowed and what is not when dealing with anti-Semitism. According to official data released by the German police, anti-Semitic incidents in Germany increased by some 10% in the country last year. According to the data, 1,646 anti-Semitic attacks were reported in 2018, the highest level in a decade. The figures also found a 60% increase in physical attacks, with 62 violent incidents reported. Meanwhile, according to the Cantor Center Report on Anti-Semitism, published annually by Tel Aviv University, violent anti-Semitic incidents in Germany increased by an astounding 70% last year. Regardless of the data, critics slammed Klein for his response or solution to anti-Semitism. Meanwhile, Germany's top newspaper Bild printed a front-page commentary this week with the headline, "The kippah belongs to Germany," and it included a cutout of a kippah to wear in solidarity with Jews and against rising anti-Semitism in the country. Editor-in-chief of the paper, Julian Reichelt, also issued a statement saying that if only one person in our country cannot wear a kippah without endangering himself, the answer can only be that we all wear a kippah. And Israeli President Reuven Rivlin said he was shocked at the comments and said the Jewish people would never submit to anti-Semitism. "We acknowledge and appreciate moral position of the German government and its commitment to the Jewish community that lives there. But fears about the security of German Jews are a capitulation to anti-Semitism and an admittance that, again, Jews are not safe on German soil," Rivlin said. And the U.S. ambassador in Germany, Richard Grenell, also voiced his opinion on the matter, calling on Jews to wear their kippahs. In a tweet, Grenell wrote, "Wear your kippah, wear your friend's kippah, borrow a kippah and wear it for our Jewish neighbors. Educate people that we are a diverse society." Here in Israel, nearly everyone has an opinion when it comes to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. But how do our closest allies across the sea view him? Well, a new Gallup poll reveals just what Americans think of the Israeli Prime Minister. A new Gallup poll released this week reveals that 40% of Americans say they have a favorable view of Netanyahu. This is up 3% from a similar poll conducted in August 2018. In contrast, though, only 27% view him unfavorably today, compared to 29% in August. And about a third of Americans in both polls had never heard of him or have no opinion. The Gallup poll was conducted between April 17th and 30th, just after Netanyahu's Likud party won the elections, and it was taken among a random sample of 1,024 adults ages 18 or older. While overall the results seem quite favorable for a politician, when breaking down the figures there are some troubling trends. According to the poll, 65% of Republicans said they view Netanyahu favorably, compared to only 18% of Democrats, showing a major divide along partisan lines. While the trend is troubling, it is not surprising, as another Gallup poll from March found that Republicans hold substantially more positive views of Israel than Democrats do. Also, when breaking down the statistics according to age group, the poll found that Netanyahu had favorable ratings among older adults, as 49% of people ages 50 to 64 and of people aged 65 and older viewed him favorably. But as the age went down, so too did his rankings, with 35% of adults aged 30 to 49 and only 26% of adults aged 18 to 29 viewing Netanyahu favorably. It's been nearly a month and a half since Israel went to elections, and there is still no coalition deal. What's more, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who was tasked with forming the new government, has only 2 days left to clinch a deal, or the country could face another round of elections for the first time in history. What's more, as we speak, there is an initial vote being held as to whether to disperse the Knesset and to head to elections. Here to talk about the breakdown in coalition talks and to make sense of it all is Rabbi Dov Lippman, a former member of Knesset with the Yesh Atid party and the senior manager of community outreach for Honest Reporting. Welcome.
Thank you. Came here straight from the Knesset.
Straight from the Knesset, what can you tell us?
First of all, what a tense day, and you feel the anxiety in the building. It actually seems like we're headed towards elections. Lieberman gave his press conference where he said he's not budging on anything. He's not giving into any deals. The ultra-Orthodox who are opposing him on the issue of drafting of the ultra-Orthodox say they're not going any further than they've gone. And there's actually, as you said, a bill coming to the Knesset floor, which seems to have a majority of the coalition, as opposed to the opposition, supporting dismantling the Knesset.
So, a big mess. Let's take a step back and see where it all started, or where it all is unraveled, let's say. There's a deep divide between Avigdor Lieberman, you mentioned it, and the ultra-Orthodox parties over this Haredi enlistment bill. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. And many people don't realize that the starting point is the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has required the Knesset to pass legislation regarding the ultra-Orthodox because there's a lack of equality right now that the rest of the country serves in the army and they don't. And there's been years of trying to find some kind of a balance. In the last government, Avigdor Lieberman, as the Minister of Defense, worked with the defense establishment, and they wrote a law which they felt was fair and met the needs of the army while also preserving those who are truly studying the religious texts day and night and don't want to serve. And Lieberman has said all along that his condition for joining a government is the complete passage of that legislation. The ultra-Orthodox are saying we want to change this, we want to change that, and he is saying no. And that is why we're at this impasse. I will tell you, though, there are many people who say we're not at an impasse because of that. There'll be ways to fix that. But Lieberman actually has found an opportunity to perhaps topple Netanyahu and move him out of the way. Perhaps that will happen through new elections. Perhaps he doesn't know exactly where it's going to go, and he wants to use this as the issue to make that happen.
I mean, some critics are saying that this is all just posturing, right? That at the end of the day, there'll be a coalition deal. Then Netanyahu will find a way to break through this impasse. What are your thoughts on that?
It's not impossible, but whereas in the past, it usually goes till the very end to form a coalition, and there is a lot of posturing along the way. There has never been a bill brought to disperse the Knesset, discussion in the Knesset all day about what's the right date to have an election, and Lieberman standing up and saying, we'll go to elections. So I don't see anyone going back on their word. If Lieberman caves now, that really is the end of him politically. It's possible, by the way, people are saying that in new elections, there's a chance that he might soar in the polls because people see someone who stuck to his convictions, said the ultra-Orthodox do have to come and serve in the army, and that might be part of his calculation as well.
Right, we saw a new poll from Ma'ariv today that said that if there were new elections now, that the right-wing bloc would actually gain votes. So what are your thoughts on that?
And that's one of the questions that everyone's asking is what will happen in new elections, what will change? And you'll have many people analyzing. I actually don't know. I look at the numbers and I say, I think we'll be right back where we were. The only thing which can change is there were some right-wing parties that were close to crossing the threshold last time and did not.
Bennett,
and Naftali Bennett is certainly an example. And if they do cross the threshold, then all of a sudden Netanyahu can be in a place where he can form a coalition without needing Lieberman, and you'll just have this right-wing and ultra-Orthodox coalition. But other than that, I don't see any scenario where all of a sudden blue and white or anyone on the center-left all of a sudden soars and we have some kind of a real game changer in terms of the makeup and the dynamic of the new government which would form.
So is this sort of a win-win situation for Netanyahu, would you say?
Netanyahu would prefer not to go to these elections. You go into elections, you never know what's going to happen. There are many people who are saying Likud will lose seats because what have people seen over the last few weeks? Netanyahu trying to pass all kinds of legislation to protect him from prosecution, immunity. And a lot of people don't like that, even people who voted for Likud. So he might lose significantly. But the reason why he's rushing with this bill, which is strange, why is he rushing to dismiss his Knesset, is because he doesn't want Benny Gantz from Blue and White to be given the opportunity to try to perhaps form a coalition, which if there's no bill to disperse the Knesset, the president can then turn to someone else who won a lot of seats, 35 seats, and say, you can try. Netanyahu does not want that, and therefore he'd rather take the risk of rushing to new elections than the risk of someone else given an opportunity to form a new government.
And that's why you mentioned Benny Gantz, Yair Lapid, they're all opposing this bill.
Exactly. You have this fascinating scenario only in Israel where the opposition is opposing the dispersal of the Knesset and the coalition is pushing for it. They want an opportunity to try to form a government, and that's what they're trying to generate public pressure right now, that we should not allow to be going right to elections, but they should at least be given the chance. What are they hoping for? Perhaps they can find people in Likud who also no longer want Netanyahu, and maybe somehow some kind of a national unity government can be formed. The chances of that are pretty much impossible. Likud has said we're sticking with Netanyahu publicly. Privately, people might want to see him go, and therefore, even if they're given the opportunity, I think it's just pushing off elections a few more weeks. And either way, from everything we're seeing today, we're heading in that direction, and history is being made.
Heading towards new elections, voting on it right now. We'll have the outcome after this interview.
Absolutely.
But we'll stay tuned. Rabbi Dov Liepman, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you. Great being here.
And now, on a positive note, there are many NGOs who take the Jewish tradition of Tikkun Olam, repairing the world, to heart. But Save a Child's Heart does this on a daily basis by facilitating life-saving heart surgeries for young children from all over the world. And just this month, the charity treated its 5,000th child. Since 1995, the organization has helped children from some 60 countries by providing treatments that are simply not readily available back home. And the children are either treated by a visiting delegation or flown here to Israel. Dr. Ami Cohen, the founder of Save a Child's Heart, began operating at the Wolfson Medical Center outside of Tel Aviv, where the children who are flown to Israel are treated by over 100 doctors and nurses who have participated in their life-affirming program. Now, its 5,000th patient hails from Zanzibar and needed open heart surgery here to treat a fetal blood vessel that should have closed soon after birth. And amazingly, she is set to make a full recovery. The work of Save a Child's Heart is not over yet, though. She will now spend 2 months recovering in Israel, where she will be side to side with many other children saved by the organization. Children from Tanzania, Kenya, Ghana, Uganda, Kurdistan, Ethiopia, and even the Palestinian Authority will all recover in a housing complex close to the hospital, where doctors can keep a close eye on them. And on that note, that's all the time we have for this week's show. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us and all of you, our viewers, for tuning in. And we'd love to hear from you. If you have any stories, whether about anti-Semitism, BDS, or any positive events going on in your Jewish community, you can reach out to us on Facebook at Israel English News, or just give us a like. You can also reach out on Twitter at ILTV News and on our website at iltv.tv. I'm Ladar Gavelazi. Thanks for watching.